Hi, and welcome to our college panel. This panel is hosted by Becca Stewart-Orlowski and Laura Kazan. That's me, I'm Laura Kazan. Today we have 5 great colleges joining us. They are a variety of sizes and types, from the small liberal arts college to the research university. We are going to be having a panel. We're going to start with a presentation by the 5 admission officers from these colleges, and we're going to end with a question and answer session by our live audience. If you are interested in participating in the future, we have a subscribe link down below here in YouTube. And you can subscribe and either receive an invitation to join in the panel, or you can subscribe and get notice of when we have the next panel. So in the meantime, we're going to start our presentation and enjoy.
Here on the state, and when I say small, we are roughly 1,460 students, more than 75% of whom come from out of state. So next slide, please. I'll give a quick history overview of the college, which is that Hillsdale was founded in 1844 by Free Will Baptists. And as a Christian church, they valued equality of all human beings and religious liberty. So those are really the 2 pillars that founded the college. We were founded with a charter that immediately prohibited discrimination based on sex, creed, or color. And so we've admitted students irrespective of those qualities since 1844. Most notably, we were the 2nd college in US history to admit women. And why I tell this story, it sort of explains both the faith atmosphere and the financial story of the college. So first, we are a Christian non-sectarian school. So because the Free Will Baptists put a strong emphasis on freedom of conscience, we still do not have a required statement of faith. We aren't tied to a specific denomination, but we do have a chapel on campus, a required theology class for all students, and a lot of student life clubs that support the faith atmosphere. And second, we as a college accept no government funding. So we're an entirely independent and private college, but that doesn't mean we don't offer financial aid. So we offer all private scholarships, so merit, talent, or need-based aid to our students. And to give you an idea, our total costs are around $39,000 a year, but 94% of our freshmen this past year received some form of gift aid. So something in terms of a scholarship or grant that was not a loan, never having to be repaid. And that average gift aid package was over $18,000. And about half of our students will graduate debt-free. So I know history is a bit of a weird place to start, but it is quite important to Hillsdale and really explaining sort of that Christian identity and why we don't accept government funding. So next slide. In terms of being a liberal arts college and the curriculum we offer our students, we take a really traditional and classical approach to the liberal arts. So we want our students to have an education that's rooted in that Western, Greco-Roman, and Judeo-Christian tradition. So we ask our students to spend roughly 1/3 of their time in our required core curriculum. Now, what the core curriculum is designed to do is to spend time building flexible and critical thinking and problem-solving skills, spending a lot of time in reading, writing, and public speaking, and having your goal of your education being a knowledge of that which is good, true, and beautiful. 3 big ideas that Hillsdale talks about a lot. So how we do this is through our core curriculum. As I said, it's 18 required classes that every student will take, working through the humanities, natural sciences, and social sciences. So for example, every student takes economics, politics, philosophy, fine arts, great books, mathematics, biology, and chemistry. So really building that foundation. Now, the other 2/3 of a student's time is spent in their major. So we have more than 30 that students can choose from to really delve deeper into that subject that you love. And our most popular majors right now include biology, economics, history, English, politics, financial management, and math. Our students spend quite a bit of time on undergraduate research. So for example, our pre-med students spend a lot of time in our human cadaver lab on campus. We also have a research wing of our library on campus doing some of original historical or economic research. We offer study abroad programs in 7 different countries. Our most popular is to go to Oxford in England. And then we also have a Washington, DC internship program. As you can see on this slide, we emphasize that small class size. So the average class size is 13, and we have a 9-to-1 student to faculty ratio on campus. So next slide. But we don't just want the education that Hillsdale offers to be confined to the walls of a classroom. So we really encourage students to be active in student life. And because over 75% of our students are from out of state, we're a really residential campus. Over 2/3 do live in the dorms, and then a range of extracurricular opportunities, everything from more than 120 different clubs. A quarter of our students involve themselves with a fraternity or a sorority. A quarter of our students are NCAA Division II varsity athletes. 40% of our students are involved in the performing arts in some capacity. And we are also ranked top 5 in the nation for students who volunteer the most in their community. So there's a strong emphasis put on service. I think a big part of that is that we ask every student to sign an honor code, pledging themselves to living virtuously on our campus with honesty, respect for others, integrity, duty, and service, and overall just pledging to conduct yourself with honor. So if you visit Hillsdale, you'll see iPhones left to reserve tables to eat in the cafeteria. You'll see laptops left in the cafeteria and the library to save space to study. So it's a very trusting and warm environment. As I said, I'm an alum. I didn't lock my dorm room once in my 4 years. And where I'll end is with our graduate placement rate. So we think that this combination of a liberal arts core, strength of major, and academic program, and then that student life experience pairs together that we see a 98% graduate placement rate. So within 6 months of graduation, 98% of our students are either working full-time in graduate school or doing full-time military or volunteer service. So I know my time has come to an end. I hope that this really quick overview helped to paint a better picture of Hillsdale, and I look forward to answering your questions during the Q&A session at the end. Thank you.
All right, can everybody hear me okay? Let's hope so. Yay. Thank you. Hello, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Betsy Rugstassen. I'm one of the admission officers for Northern Arizona University, and I'm regionally based in San Diego County for Northern Arizona University. And NAU is located in Flagstaff, Arizona. We are almost at 7,000 feet high in elevation, so it's very different from some other parts of the country here. Similar in elevation to Big Bear in Tahoe, surrounded by the largest contiguous ponderosa pine forest in the whole world. So it's very different from most states, Arizona, California, other places in America too. The city of Flagstaff has about 71,000 residents, so not a huge city. Grand Canyon's about an hour and a half north of us. The Red Rocks of Sedona are about 45 minutes southwest of us. And Flagstaff was within a 3-hour drive to about 11 parks and national parks and monuments in the US. Flagstaff also has one of the best urban trail systems in the whole country, so it's a great area for students who really want to be outside, hiking, biking, camping, lakes, and even winter sports. In fact, the best skiing and snowboarding in Arizona is at the Snow Bowl, which is only 20 minutes from campus. And usually you don't hear the word snow and Arizona in the same sentence. And we'll head on to the next slide, please. All right, thanks. NAU in the city of Flagstaff gets about 100 inches of snow annually, but it melts really quickly. That's because Flagstaff averages about 288 days of sunshine, which is very similar to California. The only city in Arizona that's actually never reached 100 degrees. We've got many other cities in America and little towns that actually have, but very low humidity there and also not too hot. But students get to experience all 4 seasons. If it ever gets cold for students, though, especially students in California, and you miss that warmer weather, you can just head south and down in elevation pretty quickly until it gets warmer down in Phoenix. And that's only about 2 hours south of us, but it gets warmer on the way down there too. And NAU has the largest enrollment of all the schools that you're going to learn about here today, about 21,000 students. Our average class size is about 31, but they do get smaller as students go through the years, and the student to faculty ratio is about 19 to 1. and about 38% of our students are from outside of the state of Arizona. We're one of only 3 in-state universities in Arizona. So most of our students are from almost every state as well. We've got about 100 different majors, but we're best known for forestry, nursing, education, hotel and restaurant management, communication, art, photography, music, business, engineering, astronomy, environmental science is another big one too. But all of our majors have many internships opportunities for them to do. We also have an honors college. About 1,500 students are a part of that, and they have their brand new own very nice residence hall on campus, and they take smaller discussion-based kind of courses and have priority enrollment and housing. Most of them will study abroad, but all of our students are encouraged to study abroad. NAU students study in more than 70 different countries and 200 different cities worldwide, and there were about 1,000 placements last year for NAU students studying abroad. NAU also ranks in the top 100 according to the National Science Foundation and Research for universities that don't have a medical school on campus. And the next slide, please. And our application actually just opened for the fall of 2020 on Monday, only 2 days ago. So we're one of the early ones. Most college applications will open up obviously in the fall, but these are our 16 core courses that NAU is mostly considers when we're looking at students for admission. Those are the ones that we really concentrate on, those 16. We don't require an essay or a personal statement. They're not required at all. No letters of recommendation are required, but you'll see we are test score optional, as you'll see there. Next slide, please. But we do, and so we don't require test scores for admission, but depending on a student's SAT or ACT scores at the bottom of the screen, they can be eligible for a merit scholarship. And we also have, for every student, no matter what state you're in, we have the pledge. So your tuition is going to be locked, whatever it is, when you start, for up to 4 years. But we are part of the Western Undergraduate Exchange. We're going to have one more school today who's also part of that Western Undergraduate Exchange, or WUI. So for NAU, no matter what your major, if you are a California resident or one of the Western state residents, you'll actually get a lower tuition rate for those 4 years. And it doesn't matter what your major is or anything else for that too. So that's about it from NAU. That's a little snapshot of NAU, but next we're going to go, I believe, up to the Pacific Northwest, up to Reed College. Thanks.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me and see me and all of that good stuff? Okay, yes, wonderful. All right, just making sure. So my name's Kat Buckspan. I'm a Senior Assistant Dean of Admission at Reed College. And yeah, excited to share a little bit with you today. Go ahead and give me the next slide. Okay, so just to get you oriented a little bit, Reed is a small liberal arts college that is kind of, in my opinion, the best of both worlds. I'm not from the Pacific Northwest, but I've lived here about 10 years. And we are, the picture on the left you're seeing that is campus. That main brick building is actually the one that I work in and I'm sitting in right now. So campus is kind of that picturesque, quaint college, kind of idyllic atmosphere, very park-like and green with, big grassy quads and red brick buildings. But we are also in the city proper of Portland, Oregon. So we're in a residential neighborhood. Portland's an incredibly bike-friendly city. You don't need to have a car. We have great public transportation that's really easy to use from campus. And in like a 10-minute walk, you can be in kind of the business district center of our neighborhood, where there are coffee shops and laundromats and grocery stores and all of that. Or in a car or with public transit, you can be in the heart of downtown. What you're seeing are the taller buildings in the distance of that photo, just in like 10 or 15 minutes. So yeah, so kind of the best of both worlds, in my opinion. Our campus is very green, as you can see, kind of classic Pacific Northwest. We have about 1,400 students. We're completely undergraduate here at Reed, so there's no graduate students on campus, just 1,400 Reedies. About 80% live on campus, and it's a very diverse student body. We have 49 states represented and over 40 different countries. Someone who had a little more time on their hands than I do ran some numbers at one point and determined that Reed students travel further to attend Reed than any other college in the country on average. So that's kind of the heart of the Reed experience, is this residential community. So living and breathing and learning together on campus, but with a lot of different perspectives coming to share their viewpoints. Next slide, please. So we're a small liberal arts college. So like Hillsdale, we have a liberal arts curriculum. So you're going to take a variety of different types of classes that you're required to take. We have distribution requirements. We feel that makes you better prepared as a student and a scholar to go out into the world, sitting in lots of different types of classes. You learn the skills and modalities of those disciplines. And so you're a very nimble thinker then when you go out into the world. You have questions to answer and problems to solve. And there are a lot of great liberal arts colleges out there. I went to one. It wasn't Reed. It's okay. They knew that when they hired me. But why do students choose Reed then from one of these other great schools? Really, at the end of the day, it's because students want to spend their 4 years in college focusing on learning. They want to be embedded in a community that has a love of learning and believes that the pursuit of knowledge is a worthy cause in and of itself, that learning is intrinsically valuable. And that is what ties together this very diverse community here at Reed. So we think of it as this is a place where students become scholars, and Reedies really are said to live a life of the mind. So students gather, whether it's in the classroom or outside of it, and are talking about ideas and asking questions about the world around them. So we don't have any graduate students. All of our classes are small. Average class size is 15. Lecture classes are very rare. And every single class is taught by a full-time Reed faculty member, full-time professor. We don't use any teaching assistants. They're not going to be graduate students who are doing your grading. So the relationships that you build are very intense, not between just your peers, but also with your professors. We have kind of a little bit of a unique relationship with grades here at Reed. You do receive grades, but they're very heavily de-emphasized because, again, the emphasis is on the learning, not on, judging yourself how you're doing compared to somebody else. And we're an undergraduate research institution. So every single student conducts firsthand research, which culminates in their senior thesis. Next slide. So the honor principle is the heart of the community here at Reed. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the concept of an honor code. It's a little bit different here. It's not a codified list of rules that you agree to adhere by. Instead, it's an idea. So it's kind of the readiest thing there is, I think. What that means is that we have a radically inclusive community. The honor principle, if you're familiar with the golden rule, we think of the honor principle as the platinum rule. It's to treat others the way they want to be treated. So it constantly challenges every member of our community to think outside themselves. And the result is that we have a very inclusive and open-minded and diverse community, and also one with a lot of academic integrity. Also pretty cool here, every single student club, organization, every single class, every resource is available to any student who wants to utilize it or participate in it. You would never be excluded from participating in anything or said, I'm sorry, you can't do that because you don't tick this box. So, next slide, please. So life after Reed, that love of learning which draws people to Reed for college doesn't just get turned off when you graduate. Reedies tend to pursue careers where they can continue to ask questions and dig for knowledge. Over 70% of READ alum will earn a master's degree in their lifetime. We're fourth in the nation for the highest number of graduates earning PhDs. That's amongst all colleges and universities, not just small liberal arts colleges like us. And they go into every industry you can possibly imagine, so very diverse as well. All right, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me, see me? Great, thank you. So my name's Vanessa Aya, and I'm with the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, or UCCS. I've been with the university for quite a while. I started with them about 20 years ago as an academic advisor and have worked in a wide variety of student success roles, from the Career Center to orientation. And for the last 9 years in admissions, I love working with all students, but I do focus usually my travel in the West as well as in the Midwest. Before we got started, it was funny because Laura talked about, we should have some intro music before we got started. In my mind, for you baseball fans, immediately went to walk-up songs. And so I got two popped in my head when it came to thinking about Colorado. One was, of course, Ain't No Mountain High Enough, because we are home to the Rocky Mountains. And then the other was America the Beautiful. You see on this slide here a shot of Pikes Peak Mountain, which you can see from anywhere on our campus. But the author of that song was actually standing on top of Pikes Peak Mountain when she composed that. So that's your fun fact for today on Pikes Peak in Colorado Springs. So let's go to the next slide, please. And so UCCS is a part of the all public, all research University of Colorado system. A lot of students know Boulder. They are the biggest in our system. We also have a downtown Denver campus. Colorado Springs, though, the campus that I'm affiliated with, we are 1 hour south of the capital city of Denver, and we have about 12,400 students. So smallest within the system, but when you compare us to other Colorado public and private universities, you will find that we are medium sized, so to speak. So lots of different majors to choose from. We divide our majors into 6 areas, our largest being letters, arts, and sciences. So things like psychology, communication, biology, pre-med are consistently popular. We also have a School of Public Affairs, which includes criminal justice. We have a College of Business, a School of Engineering, our College of Nursing and Health Sciences. Oh my goodness, and I forgot one. I'll remember it in just a moment. But on this slide here, you see that we have about 3 different programs that are new this year that I'm highlighting. Within our communication program, which does go all the way up to the PhD level, we have a new major, sport communication. In the city of Colorado Springs, we are home to one of the U.S. Olympic Training Centers, as well as the headquarters for the U.S. Olympic Committee. And with that, there are at least 20 national governing bodies of sports. So anything related to sports, health and wellness, nutrition, so on and so forth, it's a strength of ours, just because of the organizations that are with us in our city. We also have what's called the Bachelor of Innovation, or the BI program. You see that, yes, they trademarked that degree, they copyrighted it, only entrepreneurs would think to do such a thing. It's actually about, oh gosh, I did now, started off as a sort of like an interdisciplinary program between our College of Business and our College of Engineering, but has since grown to, so to speak, marry different other areas. But a couple of the original programs in that area under our BI would be our game design and development program. We also have a computer security degree in that area as well. Also in the city of Colorado Springs, we are home to the U.S. Air Force Academy, as well as NORAD. They keep our skies safe. On Christmas Eve, you hear about NORAD because they also track Santa as he makes his deliveries. But with that, we have faculty who work with those organizations as well, have knowledge in security clearance, and of course, related opportunities that way. The picture on the right is our fairly new Ent Art Center Art Center. We have always had visual and performing arts majors. For a long time, dance was a minor, but this past year, it is not only offered as a minor, it is also a bachelor's program. We've had those programs for years, but they have been spread out all over the hill that our university sits on. But now we have this beautiful building where there are several theater spaces. Our Gallery of Contemporary Art is there. It is a very lively space for all things visual and performing arts. Let's go to the next slide, please. And in terms of paying for college, we are part of our University of Colorado campus does participate in the Western Undergraduate Exchange Program, where you're not paying the cheapest resident tuition fee, you're not paying the most expensive out-of-state fee, you're paying somewhere in between. And we do that automatically for all majors except for nursing. Our nursing students, however, they need to meet certain requirements to get into that program. And usually when they do that, they qualify instead for what's called the PEAK scholarship. But in addition to that, we do have other scholarship opportunities for our students, including honors program. If you are currently involved in leadership opportunities, whether it's at your high school, through an employer, at your church, on sports teams, you might want to check out our Chancellor's Leadership class scholarship. We also have a wide array of student employment opportunities. Out of the 12,000 students that live on our campus, about 1,800 of them work somewhere on campus. In that shot, you see Clyde, our mascot, mountain lion, and he is staffed by at least 4 part-time student employees who make public appearances on his behalf. And so that's just one example of many opportunities across campus for students to work and earn some money while they're also studying for classes. Let's go to the next slide. And finally, the state of Colorado, it is such a huge playground for anything outdoors. We have things right in our city. You see that shot there of beautiful Garden of the Gods, where students can do hiking of all levels. On our campus, we have our own mild hiking trails and mountain biking trails. You can go rock climbing there at Garden of the Gods. Of course, various ski resorts are not that far away. We do buses on the weekends when we've got snow on the ground. And then, of course, our students are not only using Colorado as their playground, they're looking at study abroad opportunities, or as you see in that picture, play abroad opportunities. Last summer, our UCCS basketball team got to go and play some tournaments out there. So thanks for your time. And I think up next, we've got Brittany from University of Richmond.
Awesome. This is great. Hi, everyone. I am Brittany Quinones from the University of Richmond, and I am based down here in San Diego. So a little bit about myself. I graduated from Richmond in 2013 with a double major in Leadership Studies, which is a program that is a bit unique to Richmond, and also a sociology major. So it was a great experience at Richmond. It was essentially the only place I wanted to work, but I've been at the university as a student and staff member about for the last 10 years. So I was on campus first, and then they actually moved me out here to California, which is amazing for sure. And I will cover all of California, SoCal and NorCal and beyond. So next slide. So I always like to start talking about the university's location, of course. So we are 2 hours away from Washington, D.C., and 2 hours away from Virginia Beach. So we're basically right in the middle of Virginia, which is an awesome location, but even closer to our campus is really the city of Richmond. So if you look in the picture here, you can see the city in the skyline there, but it's about a 15-minute drive from our campus. So essentially, it's the best of both worlds, as we've heard a little bit before from my other colleagues here, in a sense that you're getting a small campus community, but you're also getting a mid-sized city with Richmond. And as you can see, some of those stats there, there's museums, so many restaurants to choose from. As an alum and living there 2 years after graduation, one of my favorite things to do was to go into the city for all of the unique festivals that we have. So we have, one of my favorites is Broad Appetit. In Richmond, there's a street called Broad Street, and a bunch of vendors, about 100 vendors, will take over the street. It'll close down, and they will give you little samples of their food for about $3, and you can try as much as you want. We have First Fridays in the city, which our students love. NASCAR comes to Richmond. We have a bacon festival. So there's always something going on off campus. But to be honest, at Richmond, at a small school, it's very much about the campus community. And what I love sharing with my students from California is that about 85% of our students are actually coming from out of state. So, of course, while you will be going across the country and learning new things, a lot of other students will be working on building that same community and traveling a bit of a distance to attend Richmond. So location-wise, it's awesome. Next slide. So more kind of standard facts about the university. We are a small private liberal arts institution. So 3,000 undergraduate students. And I think the thing that stands out the most to me is the classroom experience. So our average class size is about 15 to 16 students. We don't have any large lecture halls, but it's very much about, like many other liberal arts schools as well, that discussion-based classroom experience. So you are really meeting your faculty, getting to know them on a one-on-one level, but also really getting to know the students in your classroom. And since there's such a broad range of students who are there, again, you're meeting people from really all over the world as well. To go into some of those programs that are unique to Richmond, we are definitely known, number one, for our business school. That's our most popular program. I would also say our School of Leadership Studies is well regarded because we are the first school of leadership studies on the undergraduate level in the entire world. So that is unique to Richmond. And I can give more info later about that, but it's a little bit complicated to go into. And then I would say biology and chemistry are getting a lot of recognition, mostly for research opportunities that students are able to do within maybe their first or second year. And then I would say political science, given our location and ease of going in and out of DC, and a lot of other programs. But what's most important is that every single student has to apply undeclared when you apply to Richmond. So that first year and a half, you will take any classes that you want, really across any department. And then the second year, about the middle of your sophomore year, you'll declare your major and then be able to obviously delve into what you're studying. So that is extremely important. And then we also have some general education requirements that you'll be able to choose from. And really, you're allowed to be specific with those, and they might be something that you're already interested in studying. Outside of that, there's a lot of other important things on here. Some info about kind of our financial aid in terms of need-based aid and merit-based scholarships. I have a little bit about the deadlines here. And the most important thing you have to know is that this next year, we're actually changing our deadlines a bit. And all of the deadlines start with a 1. So November 1 is early action and our early decision deadline. And then the next one would be our December 1, which is our Richmond Scholars deadline. So that's the full tuition, room, and board. And if you actually apply anytime before December 1, so of course including early action, you'll be considered for all of our scholarship opportunities. And then there's a third deadline, which is January 1, and that is regular decision. And then at that time, you'll also be considered for presidential scholarships, which is 1/3 of tuition. So there are a lot of opportunities for merit-based scholarships, but we are known to meet 100% of demonstrated need and need blind and admission, which is a great fact of our financial aid department, which is awesome. On the other end, Division 1, it's kind of nice to have a D1 environment on campus when we're such a small school as well. So football, basketball games, baseball, soccer, men's and women's. So we have a lot of activities on campus that are always happening, like I said, both on and off campus as well. And next slide. And the last thing that I will leave you with is something that I believe is pretty unique to Richmond. About 5 years ago, I think, in 2014, basically right after I graduated, Richmond instituted the Richmond Guarantee for every single student. So this means that from now on, every single student is guaranteed a research or internship opportunity over the summer, where you can get up to $4,000 to basically go anywhere in the entire world and fulfill a research or internship experience. So for students that are from California, you could be able to come back here over the summer to California and live in any of these amazing cities. You can go abroad to another country. You can tag it to your maybe junior experience abroad. Or another great option for our students is staying on campus and doing research with our professors over the summer. And of course, these funds can help for housing, food, transportation, flights. So you can use that fund for basically anything that you'd want to do in terms of research or internship, and even community service, if you're having a full-time experience, could be counted for too. And that is what I'll leave you with. Otherwise, I think we have time for questions now.
So thank you very much, everyone, for your time and giving us your presentation. It was well appreciated. And everyone on the people that are watching, everyone was great in not bombarding us with questions. But if you want to write your questions now, then Becca and I can go ahead and read them off to people. You can address them to an individual college, or you can address them to the panel in general. We have tons of questions on the College Seeker Facebook group. Let's see if anyone dares to ask questions here. We have currently one question, and maybe we can go from there. So this is a time, folks, where you can ask questions. So I'm going to start, and what I'll do is I'll read a question, and the panel can answer it. And then if there's a specific question for a specific college, then we'll go ahead and let you know that as well. So Becca, I'll go ahead and start with Melissa's question. Melissa left, but she really wanted to ask this question, and then we can just alternate. Does that sound good? So Melissa asked, and this is a question that is never ending, by the way, in our social media group. The question for the entire panel was, how do you approach dual enrollment credits that freshmen may bring in from high school? And we have massive dual enrollment, especially here in California, where it's free. And the fear or the question is always, what happens to credits when people go to different schools? And so if you guys have any knowledge of that for your school, would you mind sharing it?
I can start with that one. It's pretty straightforward for dual enrollment here at Reed. Essentially, what you need to know is that what we say is you can't double dip. So what that means is that if you've taken a dual enrollment class and are using that course towards high school credits, then you cannot get credit for it at Reed. However, if it is a class that you've taken and it has not been used for high school graduation requirements, then it may be applicable for credit here. And once you're admitted, then our registrar assesses that and lets you know. So yeah, there's good criteria on our website about what you can and can't get credit for if you haven't double dipped. So yeah.
Kat, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, just to clarify for people in case they ask, if somebody's attempting to get credit for a class that goes beyond their high school, would you recommend that people save like syllabuses and you know, textbooks used and all of that? Do you know anything about that?
No, it's really not necessary. The registrar is very adept. I mean, that's a huge part of the job and what they're doing. And we do have a lot of transfer applicants here at Reed. Not a lot, but they assess all of those individually. And so they're used to reaching out to the institutions should they need more information.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Anyone else from the panel want to comment?
Yes, so I can jump in, which I'm guessing is also going to be pretty comparable to a lot of the other colleges here. But so with Hillsdale, how we have sort of 3 standard rules for transfer credit that they have to meet before we evaluate how they would transfer. And those rules are, number 1, the credits have to be coming from another regionally accredited institution, which is going to be the majority of the universities and community colleges, but they have to be regionally accredited because that's the accreditation we hold. Second, we won't transfer anything below a C-. We don't count D's as passing grades. And third, we have to have an equivalent department on campus. There are a couple other nuances there in terms of we will only transfer science classes that have a laboratory component. We won't transfer math courses below Calculus 1. Etc. So when a class meets those 3 criteria as far as the accreditation, the grade requirement, and that we have an equivalent department, that's when the registrar gets involved as far as determining if this credit transfers as fulfilling and meeting a specific course on Hillsdale's campus, or whether it would transfer in as elective credit towards the completion of a bachelor's degree and that major. So that's how we evaluate those credits.
A quick follow-up for you, Kelly. What about, as Kat mentioned, the double dipping, the high school courses taken for high school credit, as opposed to courses taken beyond what is necessary for high school?
Yes, so if the class also counted towards their high school graduation, we will still evaluate it for transfer credit.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would say for UCCS, when a student applies to our university, they not only have to send in their high school transcript, but the transcripts for whatever college they're earning their dual credits through. And that, upon acceptance, the college credit transcript is what we will look at in terms of equating them and seeing which courses they've chipped away at in their 4-year degree plan. We also take AP credits. We've got a pretty well articulated list of which AP classes we consider and what scores you need via our admissions website. And we also will take an IB credit from students.
Is that everyone?
I just wanted to say one more thing, because I think it's important always with talking about the college process, and especially with homeschool student, or anyone as we call it, students in a non-traditional high school setting, to reach out, of course, to us and ask about these specific requirements and how they will work for that student. So as you can see already, all of our cases are so different, and Richmond is also different and unique from all of the ones that have been mentioned already. So for us, we're looking to see, for the most part, that students have taken a college course in a college setting that is taught by a college professor, where they are surrounded by college students. So basically, it's, you know, you have to go to that campus and take the class that would typically be taken by college students. So it's a little bit different for us, and we don't typically assess that during the admission process. So it's not a great answer, right? But I can't necessarily tell you if your credits are absolutely going to transfer or not until you enroll at Richmond. And like Kat was saying, until you speak to the registrar about how that is going to happen after you're enrolled. But what I always tell students is those classes are going to make you more competitive in the admission process. So although you don't know just yet if they can transfer, it's definitely a bonus to have them on your transcript, whether it is to complete your coursework in high school, right? Or if it's to challenge yourself with what's offered. So.
I think I'm going to ask a question for all of you. Do you prefer dual enrollment or AP for homeschoolers, or does it matter? And any of you guys can answer.
I'll jump on. Oh, sorry if I'm stepping on someone's toes. I can't see anyone else right now. But with Hillsdale, I would have no preference when I'm reading an application, whether a student has AP coursework, IB coursework, or the dual enrollment. And obviously AP and the dual enrollment is going to be more common for the homeschooling students. I have no preference. I do think our AP credit policy is more transparent. So if bringing in college credits to Hillsdale is important to you, then you're probably better served by going the AP route, because we have a very clear rubric on our website of if you score a 4 or a 5 on every AP exam, how that transfers to Hillsdale, along with a list of the few AP exams that we don't accept at all. So I think that's a more transparent process, which is probably of a better benefit to the student. But when I'm reading an application, I have no preference whether it's AP or college credit to challenge yourself.
Okay, perfect. Because I think there were kind of two parts to that question. You know, in admissions, I guess is what I was asking, you know, do you have a preference? Do you feel like if a student takes AP exams, they're going to be more competitive than community college? Okay, next person. Thanks.
And I would add for UCCS that there is no preference for us either, because we have it pretty spelled out, you know, how your AP and IB test scores come over and what classes you're fulfilling. I saw that there was a question on the chat about CLEP exams, and if we take that, we do. And we also have some Dante's tests that we take. With our location, because we have several military bases in our city, a lot of that is pretty well spelled out, the variety of ways. The other bonus, of course, when you're taking AP classes and IB classes, just from my previous hat as an academic advisor, a lot of students come in very well prepared for the rigor of college courses. So, of course, there's that benefit that you want in terms of earning credit. But again, students who go through AP or IB, I traditionally see them be successful in classes and have a better time transitioning from high school work over to college work.
And Kat? Oh, your mic's off. Sorry.
Thank you. Similarly, yeah, I pretty much what Kelly said, no preference in the admission process, whatever is accessible and doable for an applicant. We love to see dual enrollment, AP, IB, whatever works for you. We love to see that rigor and you challenging yourself. Also, similarly, for AP and IB credits, it's more transparent. You can just Google Reed College AP credits, and you'll go to a web page that'll tell you exactly what score you need to get on each test in order to receive credit or read. So it's a little bit easier to navigate than dual enrollment, where the registrar has to assess that. But yeah.
Okay, great. Laura, do you want to pick up a next question?
Sure. Let's sort of skip around a bit because I really like this one. What is the admission implications for students who take a gap year? Gap years are becoming more and more popular in our Facebook group. So that's a good question.
And I wonder, to add on that, if this person is asking about taking a gap year after they apply or before they apply. So I'm not sure. Maybe you guys could address either.
I'm happy to start with that one. As an applicant who is currently on a gap year, we really are evaluating that person with the same criteria that we would to someone who's in senior year. We want to know what you're using your time, what you're spending your time doing, and why you feel that is beneficial to you, and whether that's because you're taking dual enrollment classes or whether because you graduated and you've decided to wait a year before applying to college. So tell your story, I would say, and let us know why you chose that path and how you see that you see that impacting you and helping you achieve your long-term goals, what you've learned from that enrollment. As a senior who is applying and wants to take a gap year, that's not, I mean, you can share that with us that you intend to do that when you apply, but you don't need to. The way that would work here at Reed is that you would apply, be admitted, enroll on the May 1st deadline, and then you would submit a request for a deferral, which would then be approved by mid-year. So you have to commit to coming, and then you can request the deferral. So.
Okay. Anyone else?
Ours varies slightly for Hillsdale. I think very similarly, I would echo the same comments as Kat as far as while a student's on a gap year, how they should apply. Our official policy is that we do not defer offers of admission. So you are admitted for the semester for which you applied. And if you choose not to enroll at that time, you would have to reapply later. However, like every great rule, it's filled with exceptions. So I always tell students, if you're going into senior year and you know 100% you're going to take a gap year, then probably save yourself from applying to Hillsdale at that time and just wait and apply during your gap year when you know you're going to enroll, because we might not approve your deferral. If, however, it's something that comes up after you've already applied to Hillsdale or you're sort of on the border of whether you want to do a gap year, I say go forward with applying. So for example, we've had students that we've granted deferrals based upon obviously medical reasons, who needed some more time at home for some treatment before coming to Hillsdale, or really unique opportunities. We had a student who we deferred their admission because they had an internship with the European Union. So they could go to Brussels for a year. So we said, yeah, do that. So I think like every rule, it has exceptions. But in general, our policy is no.
Betsy and Vanessa, do you, as public schools, I assume that you probably don't grant gap years if somebody applies and gets in, or am I assuming wrong?
Well, it's similar to what Kelly was saying at Hillsdale for NAU. They would reapply basically after, if they're going to be away for 3 semesters, they would reapply for that semester that they'd be coming back. The one thing to remember too for students coming in, if during that gap year, they decided to take some community college or college credit too, if they come in with more than 11 credits to NAU, they then would actually need to reapply as a transfer student. So it's more trying to figure out, what they're doing during that gap year, but we're pretty much just looking at what they had taken in high school, and if they were accepted before, they're going to be acceptable again, pretty much. So there's not going to be any change there. We have an online transfer tool called Jack's Path, and we're the Lumberjacks, so it's called Jack's Path. So they can see what if they did take something elsewhere during that gap year, what will transfer and what won't. But generally, that's pretty much our criteria. We see more and more, like you all were saying, more students doing some kind of a gap year.
And Vanessa?
Yes, very similar to NAU in that we will defer enrollment for up to 1 year. And then when they're ready to come back, they just let us know. We reactivate their acceptance. In the case where they do take some transfer work, they would need to reapply as a transfer student, and we would have to basically reevaluate from there.
All right, thank you. Great. Let's see, I'm going to kind of poke around here. Honors programs, it looks like a couple of people have asked. So what are you looking for in an honors student? Do they write extra essays for admissions? And, kind of what's the experience? What's the benefit of an honors college? Or just, for those that have that.
I'm going to answer and just start with, we don't have an honors college at Richmond. Mostly we're 3,000 students, right? And I'm not sure if Hillsdale and Reed, do you have similar experiences as a small liberal arts school? So I know some do and some don't, but every student at Richmond, like I said, undeclared, right? You have those similar experiences, and then you can do an honors thesis, so it's not necessarily a full-blown honors college.
Yeah, so with Hillsdale, we have an honors program, but it's not for incoming freshmen. So it's a little bit different in that way. It's not something that we evaluate for during the admissions process. Your high school actually has absolutely no bearing, your high school performance, upon whether or not you would be in our honors program. So ours is called Collegiate Scholars. Unlike a lot of honors colleges, there's no preferential housing, there's no scholarship associated. Like I said, no incoming freshmen are members. So how it works is that students apply second semester of freshman year to join the Collegiate Scholars Program. They take roughly 25 to 30 freshmen at the end of their freshman year for sophomore year. And so we'll have about that size cohort in each class for the sophomore through senior years. And those students have some extra academic opportunities as far as preferential class registration for honors seminars, which are capped at 10 students per class. And those are really deep dive, very specific subjects with members of our faculty. I was a part of our honors program, so I definitely liked that extra academic niche at Hillsdale. I took seminars on like the statesmanship of Frederick Douglass, or on James Joyce's novel Ulysses. So I liked the ability to hone in. They are required to write a senior thesis that cannot be double counted towards their major. So I had to write 2 theses my senior year, which was a bit of a daunting endeavor. And then there are some extracurricular opportunities to travel in the Midwest and visit different museums or historic homes. And then the big part of the honors program at Hillsdale is that those students go to Europe or the Middle East for 2.5 weeks the summer before their senior year. For about 15 years, we had gone to Turkey. Unfortunately, with the security issues that the State Department has brought to our attention, we're not doing that right now. We're currently going to Greece instead, but we're hoping to go back to Turkey as soon as possible. So that's a little bit about the honors program at Hillsdale.
We don't have one. The entire college is an honors college.
Yeah.
Who was that just made the entire?
I think that was Kat.
Was that Kat? Yeah, Reed. Reed would definitely all be honors college.
And then, so that leaves Vanessa and Betsy. You guys have honors colleges, right? And what does that look like?
NAU does have an honors college. It's a separate application for admission to that. After a student is accepted to NAU, they can apply. They can apply as early as November of their last year in high school to apply for that. We actually even still sometimes accept students throughout the summer too, but it's a separate application. We're just looking for a little bit more rigor with their classes too. Probably our average student probably has maybe like a 3.4 coming in from high school, unweighted GPA. Higher SATs, again, we don't require them, we're test optional, but they'll look at that, and that's when their essay comes into play for that too. But many opportunities as far as study abroad. A lot of them will go with our special honors college professors to the Grand Canyon. They'll be taking a lot of courses up there. That's only about an hour and a half north of us too. So it just kind of elevates their experience at NAU. It leads to a lot of other internships as well. So we have about 1,500 students of our total. We have a larger population of almost 22,000 who will take part of that. But it's good, and it's a great value too. They have a wonderful residence hall too. They just get a little bit more out of their education.
Betsy,
and what also at yes.
I'm sorry. Can I just jump back? You said I know you're finishing the honors, but you said test optional. Can I assume that for private homeschoolers that you would like to see a test score? Here in California, and this is actually, I just asked Laura to ask this, but I'm tagging on. We have charter homeschoolers here that come from public charters versus private homeschoolers, where we file our own private school affidavits. So if they were applying for the honors or just admissions, how do you deal with that?
Right. We look to see mostly in those 16 core course areas. And if not, we can actually replace, depending on, especially if they took ACTs as well, with the science component too, or any kind of foreign language area. If they took the subject test of the SATs, we can look at those as well too. But we would encourage them to, especially if a student has taken them. And we find that homeschoolers tend to do much better on those standardized tests as well too, to definitely include them. It's never going to hurt someone's chances for admission. We can actually grade replace too. So that kind of helps too. We can look at the SAT verbal score as opposed to their English course grades too. So we definitely encourage them to do that as well. And then it also comes into play for any scholarships as well. But I always tell students it's never going to hurt your chances for admission to NAU in any way. So yeah, that's a good question. I saw that question down there earlier.
And then for UCCS, in regards to the honors program side of things, students can apply into that program if they've got a 3.75 high school GPA. There is an essay component. We also do an interview for students as well. And I think the way our honors program works, it's a cohort group. And so a little over 30 students is what we accept. There are other benefits. They get priority registration. In our residence halls, there is an honors floor. They can opt to live on that. There are honors program, like a study rooms over in the library. So there's that. And then in regards to your question for homeschool transcripts, kind of like how at our campus, we have to be pretty well versed in receiving transcripts from our military population. In Colorado, we have quite a few students who are coming from the more rural areas. Colorado Springs, we are on the eastern slope of the Rocky Mountains, which is where most of Colorado's population lives. So Colorado Springs, Denver, Boulder, just above that. But we also get a great amount of students from the western slope of the Rocky Mountains, and some of those students are coming to us with a wide array of transcripts that we take in and evaluate. So we wouldn't have issue that way in terms of students from California as well.
Did we cover everyone with that question? Becca's doing a better job of keeping track of.
Yeah, I think so. So I think we can hear from the other schools as far as if they distinguish, Laura, between a public charter homeschool and a private homeschooler as far as application requirements.
I'll touch upon that one real quick. I went ahead and sent an email to our panelists explaining our two different systems here of independent homeschooling versus charter homeschooling. This is a question and a discussion that comes up all the time amongst families. Is there a disadvantage to one? Is there an advantage to the other? To reiterate, our charter homeschoolers, we are homeschoolers in our mind. I say we because I am a charter parent, but we look like public school students when you see our application. And I think the concern, I think Gabriella, and I second that question down below, said, for those who are with a homeschool charter, how can we distinguish ourselves as homeschoolers versus a public school? Are homeschool charter students seen as homeschoolers or under their public school? So I think a lot of people think there's a homeschool advantage or the homeschoolers look different, and charter students want to make sure that they are seen in the correct light. And can anyone just comment on this in general? I hope that makes sense.
It definitely makes sense. And one thing that I was mentioning when we were actually emailing prior to this webinar was that for some of us, we may read your homeschool applications, and for some of us, even though we are the territory managers, actually may not read your homeschool application. So for Richmond, I take a look and everything comes in my applicant inbox if any student is from my territory. But what happens is in our process, if I notice that the curriculum is different or your school profile is different, then I basically tag your application as a homeschool applicant. And there are some instances where I have to have conversations with our, what I call our homeschool specialist. Her name is Julie DuPont. And if you do apply, you'll likely work closer with her on speaking about some of your requirements and applying. But it's a combination of us working together to figure out what kind of school you're attending, and then she will do the main read on your application, and then I'll also, like I said, collaborate with her, and then ultimately all of our applications go through committee, and then when we decide that we'd like to admit you, then we will also do an interview as well for our homeschool students. So of course, you know, as you can imagine, we have similar requirements, right, for traditional students, but the process of applying and the way we do it at Richmond, it's a little bit more, I'd say, almost like hand-holding, right, through the process, because it's a little bit more of an intimate application requirements that we need for our homeschool students. I hope that's somewhat helpful.
Yeah, I'll jump in as well. So somewhat similarly, we here at Read, every application is read by at least 2 different people. And we also divide the country kind of geographically by territory, and then have a homeschool specialist as well. And so most often as a homeschool applicant, your actual file will be read by both that homeschool kind of specialist, who's one of our most senior counselors, as well as the person who represents your regional territory. So, you know, we utilize a holistic application review process. We take a lot of time reading every application, particularly for folks coming from non-traditional scenarios or schools, so that we really get an understanding of your context, what you're bringing in, what you've been doing, what you care about, what you bring to our community, what you're hoping to get out of a Read education. And so I think that works really well for homeschool applicants. And then, yeah, I think that was it. I was going to say something else and now I've forgotten. So anyway, hopefully that covers it. Oh, I remember what it was. I also think that if you, you know, we use the Common App as well as the Coalition app at Read, and there's an additional info section in there where you can kind of use that space to share anything additional that you think would just be good information for the person reading your application to know. And I absolutely encourage anyone coming from a non-traditional kind of background or that has kind of different, you know, situation, to utilize that space to just make sure it's really, really clear, you know, what your context is. So definitely feel free to put anything that you think the person, you know, your admission counselor should know in that section.
So just to clarify, maybe for those of you that accept the essays, like Kat just said, so that would probably be Richmond, Hillsdale, and Read. So homeschool students, whether they're charter or independent, can certainly use the additional information section in the Common application, as well as the counselor letter, to explain any any educational anomalies, as it were. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like if there's anything that you think that we should know, tell us. Even if it doesn't fit into a perfect box of some different application item, write us a letter and email it to us. You know, like we want to have that information. So yeah.
And for Hillsdale, we have a couple recommendations for homeschooled students that we list on our website. It ends up being about 10% of each incoming class for Hillsdale are from a homeschool background. So it's a very common thing. So all of the applications are still read by territory, regardless of the educational background this applicant has. And so when homeschool applicants apply to Hillsdale, we will tag them as homeschooled, whether they are homeschooled through a charter program, whether they're homeschooled like in the pure traditional at-home sense, whether they do a full online program, whether they're through the co-op, etc. So any student who appears homeschooled when we're reading their application will have that tag placed on their application. The recommendations we have is that we give them the option to send reading lists if they want to sort of explain the rigor of their curriculum. They can also send course descriptions. Those recommendations are especially useful if a student's doing home instruction. And then it's a pretty common sense rule, but we don't want any letters of recommendation coming from a relative. And so if you're sending a letter of recommendation from someone who is related to you, then instead of only requiring 2, we actually will require 3 letters of recommendation. But we'd really prefer that parents and siblings, etc., do not write letters of recommendation.
Kelly, just to clarify that, so for private homeschoolers, we as parents write the counselor letter, but so we do actually write that, not charter students because they're coming from a public school, but the student will still be getting 2 to 3 outside letters, teachers, others. So will you even read that counselor letter at Hillsdale?
We will read it, but I will be honest, we aren't going to weigh it as heavily as a more objective perspective. So you can send the letter, and that is pretty common is with the private homeschoolers that the parent sends a counselor letter. I see that quite a bit. So if that does happen, that's where we really need at least 2 other sources. If a student only sends a parent letter and 1 outside letter, it will hurt their application. So that's why we encourage homeschooled students who are going to have a parent letter that they send 3 or 4 as opposed to just 2.
Perfect. And the Common App allows that. You guys allow up to like 3 or 4?
Correct.
Outside.
I think we technically allow up to 5 on the Common App.
Okay. Excellent information. Thank you.
Did we cover that one? Do we have any? I can't keep track of who have answered and who has not because Becca's much better at me. Anyone else want to comment on the charter public situation versus the traditional homeschooler? I'm not sure if we got everyone's answer on that one.
I think we got Brittany and Kat and Kelly, and I think the others don't do letters of recommendation. And I don't know, Betsy and Vanessa, I don't know, does it matter if they come from a charter versus independent homeschooling?
For NAU, it does not. It does not matter. And if we need more information from the student, we will definitely ask for it. But we just kind of look at mostly their curriculum. So, yep.
And of course.
Yeah, same for UCCS. It's similar to what Betsy just said.
And as everyone can see, there's a whole bunch of email addresses on the screen, and do not hesitate to reach out. I've talked to a whole bunch of admission officers. They're really nice. They don't bite, honestly. So it doesn't hurt just to ask. I'm gonna grab a question here. We're gonna run out of time very soon, and I like this one, but I have to find it again. It was your basic, what do you look for in a freshman applicant? What type of student are you looking for, or maybe who would be a good match for your college? Pretty typical question there.
I'll go answer first because I was looking through the questions as well, and one of the ones that stood out and I think is very related to this is do you have a 4-year math requirement? I think I saw that somewhere. And technically, we don't have a 4-year math requirement. I believe it's 3 years. But what we typically say, and I would say this is even more relevant for homeschool students since your format is so unique. The most competitive students in our applicant pool have 4 years of your core courses. So for Richmond, we're looking at English, science, history, math, and then foreign language. So again, our most competitive applicants have all 4 years of those courses. And of course, as we were talking about earlier, AP, IB, dual enrollment, whatever is offered and whatever you decide to take. We'd also like to see that you challenge yourself with what's available as well. So for us, overall, having students who have themselves within the applicant pool is a big part of what we're looking for. I'm sure that many of the universities on this webinar can attest to this, but for Richmond, our profile has gone up every single year. And as your counselors may know, it's gone up pretty quickly and intensely. So basically, when we're talking about admission requirements, you can find that on our website on the student profile under undergraduate admission and the application plans. But we're talking about some pretty high numbers. The one that stands out the most, and it's easy to understand for me, is like a 31 to a 33 on the ACT, right? That's pretty selective and pretty competitive. So we want to have students that are academically prepared, and that is a factor of that, and what Kat was saying before, and I think Kelly might have mentioned this too, it's if you're doing well in those higher level courses, you're going to hopefully, not always, right, but perform better in the rigor of college. So we're looking for that. But outside of that, we also want, as a smaller school, and I'm sure every school wants it in some way, students are going to be really engaged on our campus community. There's so much to do at Richmond, and we want to see a plethora of different things that students are involved in. And you don't have to have 10 activities and fill up that Common App space, but we want to see that you're passionate about something. And the students who are most passionate and have maybe gone above and beyond, which I've heard many stories from homeschool students who have done some amazing things, you can also potentially qualify for our scholarships. And that is really what our faculty want to see more, is that you are academically prepared, but for us, we're very holistic in how we review our scholarships, that you have done something that is unique and beyond what a typical high school student might do.
Anyone else want to comment on what you look for in a student?
I can jump in as well. Yeah, really at Reed, everything boils down into kind of two buckets, if you will. There's kind of the academic bucket, and then what I deem the citizenship bucket. And Reed is a really rigorous academic curricula. We are a community that is dedicated to the highest standards of scholarly practice and critical thought and intellectual pursuit. So on the most basic level, I have failed in doing my job if I recommend for admission a student that I don't truly believe has the academic foundation and aptitude to be successful here. And so that's the baseline that we're looking for. Beyond that, we are looking for students who really want to be scholars, who want to be ingrained in a culture where rigorous, in-depth intellectual inquiry happens every single day. And it's not confined to just the classroom, it permeates the culture. So we actively are looking for and trying to assess for students that have an intrinsic love of learning, who are creative, who question the world around them, and aren't just satisfied to sit in a classroom and be told the answers to those questions, but who actually want to roll up their sleeves and dig to find those answers themselves, be it in the library or the lab or the studio. So that's kind of the academic bucket. And then on the citizenship side, I mentioned earlier that the kind of moral core of our community is the honor principle, which challenges each of us to constantly think outside of ourselves in every choice that we make and every action that we take. And we are an incredibly open-minded and diverse and inclusive community. When you're sitting in a 15-person class, the conversation that you have and the robustness of the learning is a lot deeper if people are in an environment where there's a lot of different perspectives and people actually feel like they can share those and be heard and that's welcome. And so we're looking for students who will not just acquiesce to be in that type of a community and environment, but actually want that, proactively want to seek that out and perpetuate that for the future.
We are nearing our ending time. Does anyone else want to take a stab at that question? And what does your timing look like for our panelists? Are you hitting the end of your ability to stick around, or let me know how we want to do this. We can wrap up now or have another couple of minutes. It's up to you.
I can certainly linger for a few minutes, and I'll take a stab at the last question really quickly too. In our admissions process, Hillsdale talks about looking for students who are both willing and able. And I think that's sort of how we approach the holistic review of our process. You know, like Reed and Richmond, we are a competitive admissions process. And so just kind of go through the application materials as far as where we're looking for the willingness and where we're looking for the ability. So we have to have confidence that students are able to take on our curriculum and that they will graduate in 4 years. So we're looking at their academic profile, including the types of classes that they've taken, you know, what opportunities have been available to them and how have they chosen to challenge themselves, their performance within that. So what grades have they earned? We do look at ACT or SAT or CLT scores. We treat those all equally. And so we will look at, you know, the standardized test performance of a student. We will look to their writing as well as a sign of their academic preparedness and of their intellectual curiosity. So really looking at that ability. Now, willingness comes in as well, again, through that writing, that intellectual curiosity. Do they speak up as someone who wishes to join a academic community and who wishes to contribute both intellectually and socially to our campus? We'll also look at their letters of recommendation as far as the attitudes with which they present themselves in their academic pursuits and extracurricular opportunities, and then their resume. So looking for students who are involved with, you know, perhaps they're involved in many things. Perhaps they give their whole heart and attention to one thing with great depth. Perhaps they've started a club or a business or had a leadership position somewhere. So those are sort of where we go to in the application, but I think we're really trying to find ideally that student who balances both that willingness and ability, because unfortunately none of us and none of the 5 schools can offer admission to everyone. And so we're trying to find who in our pool presents the best fit as far as what our institutions are looking for.
Let me just ask our 2 public colleges, sort of a follow-up. Do you do a more holistic admission, or are you more of a GPA type of situation that kind of bounces off the end of the same question?
Right. Yes, very different at NAU. Not holistic, really. It's more so for, like, say, our honors application. That's when it's a little bit more holistic. But it's because of the volume of applications that we get and everything else, too. It's basically if the student falls within those 16 core courses. Someone had, I think one of the questions that had come in before, if they need those 4 years of math. Students, actually, if they've taken up through 3 years of math, at least up through the equivalent of Algebra 2 or an integrated Math 3, they can actually be missing that 4th year of math if they have 3 years of a lab science. But otherwise, that's it. I mean, it's because of the largeness of our university too, and being a public institution. It's more so, I think, is if a student has the opportunity to visit those campuses too, or at least look at their the online virtual tour or online videos, just to see if they can't get to the campus, depending on the distance too, to see if it might be the right fit and if there is any way to visit, to see more so if the university is also the right type of university or college for you too, to see it right in person if you have a chance to, or interview with a local alum, or if there's a regional representative that's close to you if you're going to school out of state. But that makes a big difference with it too, if you know what NAU or whatever university or college can give to you, I guess.
Yeah, and then I'll quickly end. In terms of UCCS, we do tend to look at just the GPA and test scores when it comes to applying for admission. And not to say we don't discount your letters of recommendation or essays and things like that, but those come into play more with the scholarship opportunities that we have. So if you think of our process as a 2-pronged process, where for admissions, we will look at GPA test scores. There are 2 majors that do require an essay, and that would be nursing and our College of Business Sport Management. But other than that, those are optional pieces. But if you're looking to get funded with a scholarship, then you'll still need those pieces that way. So.
Perfect. Thank you. I think everyone actually answered that question. I know some of you need to jump off. I only had one more question that was kind of asked, and if you have time, that would be great. And if you don't, that's great too. I just wanted to say really quick, thank you so much. I really appreciated everyone taking the time to do this. It looks like I have a private conversation of maybe doing this more often with some other schools. And so that might be a great opportunity if we have that in the future. So I want to just give you a deep thanks for all that, and also for all our families that have come on. We don't know if we got parents, kids, or parents and kids, but yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I have more questions coming in, and we really are at the end. The email addresses and phone numbers are on the panel, the last slide here. This will be recorded. I actually missed about the first 2 minutes because I didn't realize I had forgotten to push the button, which is just plain me. But I will get the rest of that up onto the YouTube page that I keep, and that will be visible in the future, including all the email addresses and phone numbers. So you know what, it's already about 12:05, and I already know that one of you guys needs to leave. So maybe we can just go ahead and wrap it up here. And yeah, Betsy is saying, feel free to screenshot the info, write it down, or if we need to, I can actually take a picture of this and put it up in the College Seekers Facebook group if anyone's interested in that. So I guess thanks to everyone for coming. Really appreciate it. And I hope our panelists enjoyed it too. So thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good rest of your day.
You too, guys.
I've got to think of a better farewell where we're leaving spiel at the end. But thanks to everyone. I'm going to send a survey out for feedback so you can tell us if there was anything that we can improve on. And I'm going to go ahead and log out, and that's going to probably knock everybody off the screen. So thank you very much, and we'll see everyone online where we always visit.